Good evening and welcome to the Village of Westmont Committee of the Whole meeting for October 15th, 2009. And I'd like to ask our village manager to please take the roll call.
Okay. Mayor Ron?
Here.
Clerk Simsky is absent at a conference. Trustee Emery?
Here.
Trustee Fleming?
Here.
Trustee Forsley?
Here.
Trustee Klebanow?
Here.
Trustee Scott?
Here.
Trustee Seneca?
Here.
And then I'm here, Attorney Zemanek.
Here.
And we have out in the audience, Fire Chief Frank Trout, Fire Administrative Officer Scala, Human Resource Administrator Casey, Police Chief Mulhern, and Deputy Chief King. And I don't see anybody else back there, right?
Okay.
We have our Finance Director coming in.
Yes.
Finance Director Lisa Van Boggett.
Here.
And that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item are the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held October 1st and board meeting held October 5th, 2009. Any corrections?
I do have a question when it came to, and I was going to try to find time to review the video, but maybe the village manager or somebody could. Under the Mayor Ron's items, when we had the presentation after the IMAP on the next page, it says State Republican Patty Bellock, and so we're talking about the chief announced that the cake and coffee on the side room following the meeting, and I thought we announced it was going to be over at the...
I think you're correct, at the police department.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to try to find time to review the tape, but I didn't have time.
I can check on that, but I think you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. Open forum. We have one request before us this evening from Frank Trout, our current longstanding fire chief. And I've also asked him after the item, he's requested under open forum to give us an update on Frank Johannick, our retired fire chief. Frank?
Thank you, Mayor. Village Board. I spoke with Marie Duzzo, Frank Johannick's daughter. Frank was taken into the hospital by Westmont Fire Department ambulance approximately 2 weeks ago, taken to Hinsdale Hospital. He's since been released from the hospital and is recuperating in Manor Care nursing home on Ogden Avenue in Westmont. He seems to be doing better, and looks positive that he'll be getting out pretty soon. So our prayers are with Frank and his family at this time.
Thank you.
The second thing we have is the block off of Irving Street, and that is requested by the Bethel Lutheran Church for Sunday the 25th between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. It's our annual tailgate party. It's a family event that the Lutheran Church has each year. We also invite the neighborhood and anyone else that would like to come. It's a lot of great food, games for the kids, and we all watch the Bears beat whoever we're playing against. So anyway, that's coming up on the 25th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is the only open forum request that we have. Next, reports. First thing I wanted to mention is that this evening, beginning at 6 o'clock, was the second meeting of the Citizens Finance Planning Committee, which I appointed a number of weeks ago. And they finished their meeting, and a number of them are here in the audience with us tonight, observing how we officially conduct our meetings. Instead of watching us on TV, they can see it all firsthand. And we appreciate all you're doing, and we appreciate your coming in this evening. And I'd just like to mention the names. I'm not sure if all of you are here this evening, but it's Lynette Tuggle, Mike Porter, Justin Scheid, Carrie K. Mack, Steve Nero, Anthony Julian, and Mary Kay Caparelli. So thank you for what you've volunteered to do, and thank you for coming and joining our meeting this evening. And the only other thing I wanted to request is an executive session after our regular meeting regarding personnel. And that's all that I have right now. Our village clerk, as the manager mentioned, is in Springfield for a village clerk's meeting. And next is our village attorney, John Zemanek.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Ron Searle, our village manager.
Thank you. I wanted to mention to the board that we erred in not including on the agenda tonight the public hearing that was published for the Metro Yellow taxi cab service. So I've talked to the village attorney, and he said since we have legally published, we could go forward with that public hearing and could do that at the beginning here of the meeting, and then we would add the issue to the agenda for action on Monday night. So I guess at this point I would ask that we conduct that public hearing. And I know the petitioner is here.
And the public hearing can be entered and continued after tonight and formally placed on the agenda for continuation of the public hearing on Monday, so it does appear on an agenda. And then the formal vote can also be on the agenda Monday.
Okay, any questions?
So when would it be now? I mean, would this be the time for the public hearing?
I'm suggesting we go ahead and do it now.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Any questions on additional taxi cab license?
I think we all had some questions for the petitioner when he was here the last time, although it wasn't really the time that we would ask questions. So maybe...
You'd come up to the podium and give us your name again, sir?
Kurt Lester, Metro Yellow Cab.
Okay. Go ahead.
And we would be increasing to 8 or 9? How many taxis would this give us, companies in Westmont?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure the answer to that.
Okay, it's either
Less
8 or
than-
9, and
less than
I
10.
just, I'm curious as to what kind of volume you think you'll have in Westmont, given the large number of other taxi cab
Well,
companies.
we plan to start out small in all the areas, but one of the things about DuPage County, it's an interlocking community. You have people that work in Westmont that live in Oak Brook. So if they request cab service in Oak Brook that takes them to Westmont, or from Naperville to Westmont, we want to be legally licensed to actually sit in town and be able to take those customers back. So throughout all of DuPage County. We actually want to license all of DuPage County, as I stated last week, or 2 weeks ago, that we are also actually have petitioned PACE to become part of the Ride DuPage program, maybe a provider of transportation on those services also. We're going to get involved in the entire community, the entire county.
So you would be coming in and going out of Westmont. Do you envision yourself sitting in Westmont and waiting
Yeah.
for calls?
Yeah, we would not have a substantial amount of cars. I would say we'd probably start out with somewhere between 6 to 8 cars.
So you'd have
depending-
cars located, just sitting, idling,
Right.
waiting for the call. And where would that be?
Well, I'm assuming it would be whatever train stations, if there is an actual post there, or other locations. Otherwise, I'm not sure what taxi stands actually the village has.
I'll be honest, I have a problem with that. We have an awful lot of taxi cabs that sit out here at the train station every day. To me, it's becoming an issue. I'm getting calls on it. I don't know how anyone else feels, but
I do have an answer on how many did renew their license. There were 7 this year.
7, so this would be the 8th.
Sure.
And you give discounts to senior citizens?
Oh, definitely. Yellow Cab's whole concept has always been since 1915 on providing quality local transportation. The whole idea of the whole airport transportation thing in the cab industry is actually a recent phenomenon. It actually started by a suburban company, believe it or not. And what we're doing in the suburbs is actually bringing our city expertise on doing local transportation. There's a big need for that. There's a big need for that in not only in DuPage County, but McHenry County and Lake County. We've seen a substantial increase in those types of rides and ridership, especially nowadays. A lot of people are out of work, don't have cars, need short trips and everything else. We're here for that. A lot of companies really aren't in business for that. They're just glorified shuttle service companies. We're a full transportation company. We range everywhere from cars to minivans to 14, 15 passenger vans for larger groups. As I stated 2 weeks ago, we also plan to put on, handicap accessible vans in the area. We're a full transportation provider, unlike a lot of other companies. You have some companies in town that do some of the local service, they do some of the school districts, some of the companies do just the airport transportation. We do a little bit of everything, and we want to actually do it quite well.
Do you also have limousines?
No, we do not. We do not have limousines, and probably would, I can't speak for the owners of the company, but I doubt if they'd ever get into the limousine business. It's a direct competition with your own drivers in your company. We do airport services? Yes. We do charters only with our large vans, not with limousines.
Do your drivers take the taxis to a certain area at night, or do they take them to their houses?
Home. They're all independent owner operators. And they all work under our taxi affiliation agreements.
So there's no like central staging area amongst several towns. When you say that they would be like congregated at whatever taxi stands, does that mean you plan on having at any given time a whole bunch of cabs sitting across from the train station?
More often than not, most suburban cab companies should be working primarily on dispatched orders. Those are call-in orders. If they're here, you're not going to have cars sitting here 14, 16 hours a day sitting at the train station. The trains aren't coming in. There's no reason for them to be there. Cabs are licensed in multiple towns in today's economy. You can't make it in one town. There's no way one cab company or any cab company can make it enough business in one town, even a town the size of Naperville. You have to be licensed in additional communities out there. First of all, it also benefits the cab driver, benefits the consumer. That way, if the cab goes from Naperville to Westmont, they're licensed in Westmont to legally do business in Westmont. I'm not 100% sure on exactly what Westmont ordinance actually says, if you could actually come into town, pick somebody up and take them out of town. A lot of ordinances are actually that way. That's one way of doing business, but if a driver's here and somebody needs to get to a doctor's office, to Jewel or something else, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to do that. That's why we prefer that they license in multiple communities. We're full service 24-hour-a-day transportation company. That's what we're here for. You put the light on the cab, that's what you're in business to do, is transport people.
How many cars? How many cars?
Are we talking about putting in Westmont? I'm thinking of starting with 6 to 8 cars in the beginning, and that's pretty much to see how it grows. As the quality of our service is going to completely dictate how many cars we actually put on in any one town or throughout the county, throughout the metropolitan Chicagoland area. We're growing faster than any other cab company I've been associated with in the last 26 years, simply because of the fact that our pricing is better, our cabs are cleaner and neater. We spend a little bit more time training our drivers on customer service issues, and we also have an incentive policy for drivers to get involved in all the school transportation programs. School transportation programs, which a lot of people don't realize, also tag along with it drug testing, background checks in multiple communities, plus they can be called in at any time to do a drug test. It improves the quality of service, improves the quality of the cab company. We actually pay our drivers to go through the testing, do the school bus exam, and the whole thing. We pay for it.
How many of these anticipated cabs have drivers that live in Westmont?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know that 4 to 6 of them are currently licensed in Westmont with other cab companies. So you're not really gaining a lot of cabs, you're just moving them over to a better company. I'm a little prejudiced.
So they drive for other companies now?
They had been driving for other companies. So now, since they switched, our company is not licensed here, so they're not operating in Westmont. They're operating in Burr Ridge or Oak Brook, where they're currently licensed, or Hinsdale.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I was going over our finance ordinance for the last 6 ordinances, because I was curious on when we had talked about the coupons. And I know Trustee Emery was wondering if there was a way of tracking how many are still out there. And I just kind of started getting curious on who's turning them in. You might want to change your name to start with an A, because I don't know if people are going by a phone book first and the first name up there, but AM Regional has the most, over $5,500 we paid out in coupon. Area Taxi, over $4,200. Alliance Taxi, looks like it's over $2,600. Then we get down, there's only 4 of them who've turned them in these 6 ordinances here. And the last one was a Universal Taxi, just over 50, about 77 by now with this last. I mean, I can't figure out how they're turning them in. I get a little leery when I see these ones that are making money way in the beginning, if it's because people
They're
are
no
calling them
longer
because they're an
offered,
A.
so They must be ones that are just out there.
I don't know, but I'm
They
sitting
may
here
be
with
the only
Metro thinking,
companies that are
okay.
actually listed on the coupon itself.
Yeah, they're already previously sold ones that are being.
Right.
Right.
Some,
So-
depending on townships, depending on communities, they may actually list the cab company's name and phone number on it. They may have not been updated. The other cab companies are not on it. Several of the other cab companies that are actually in town, as I was stating before, are more of your long-distance O'Hare transportation companies, and they're really not. They're not actually going out and marketing that. I will be. My staff will be. We will be going to the senior homes, senior centers, and dropping off
So-
information and trying to educate people on our services.
So your rates are already lower than the other 7 existing.
I haven't
and-
checked every single one of them, but I would imagine they are.
Okay, and on top of that, you'll offer a discount to some of our seniors.
Offer a discount to everybody in the city of Westmont at any time or whatever. As I stated before, I'd be more than happy to provide the city with as many coupons as they want to give out. Put it in your newsletter and give it out to people. It's tough times, you know, and so our drivers as well as the company actually share in the cost of the coupons. And it's a benefit to the consumer, it's a benefit to the drivers. We have no issues on that. And that's why we want to get involved in the PACE programs and everything else.
There has been concern, as Trustee Seneca indicated, about the number of cabs that are parking over there. And we've questioned it, and we've asked the manager to look into that. So if there may very well be at some point in time a change to limit the number of cabs that any one company can park over here, or when a certain area is filled, that's the only place that they can park. So we are looking at that. If it becomes a problem where there's cabs everywhere, we're going to have to deal with it.
Definitely. I haven't seen it as bad. Well, actually, I was even at LaGrange coming through today.
Okay.
It was pretty bad there. And that's simply because of the fact that if I would restrict it to cabs that actually have orders. And most of the cabs, our cabs, all have computers in them. You can actually see that the order's on the screen, that they actually have an order there. If you have somebody coming in there just hoping to snag a ride, I don't know how much that's really servicing the community unless there aren't any cabs there at all. It's good to have 1 or 2. But if you've got 30, 40 cabs there, I can tell you this right now, if there's 30, 40 cabs parking there, my cabs are not going to be there unless they actually have an order. So that's just, that's very discouraging to any cab driver and any cab company if you're 20th in line and the first 19 get an order and you don't. Yeah. And you waited there an hour and a half for the train. So more often than not, we take all time reservations. We'll take them a year in advance for people who want to use the trains and everything, and primarily coming into a train. There may be other cab stands in town. I'll give you a village in Naperville as an example. They have in a downtown area, they have a cab stand, but it's only available on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings after 10 o'clock. Then they have a cab stand. Everything else is either at the train or on private property at hotels or those kind of locations. Very few towns actually have very many cab stands. It's not like the city of Chicago where they're parked in front of every single building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further questions?
I'm hoping we're busy enough that we don't have anybody sitting anywhere.
Mr. Mayor, have we heard from anybody that thinks that the 7 licenses out are plenty?
No, not the number of licenses, just the number of cabs that are parked in that area. And I mean, certain times, like today, if it's raining, there's going to be more cabs there than normal. We understand that, but at other times, there would, beautiful day in the afternoon, the whole area is filled up with cabs, and
Right.
we don't know exactly why.
I
Is
would
there-
doubt that very many of them actually had orders, guaranteed orders.
Right,
so.
right. Is there anybody in the audience that's here that wants to speak on this issue? Okay, thank you. So if there are no further questions from board members, this item will be on our agenda for a vote on Monday evening.
You got it.
Thank you for coming in.
And to clarify, the public hearing will be continued until Monday also, in case the public has any comments at that
Okay.
time.
Do you have anything further?
That was it.
Okay, thank you. Trustee items, Trustee Forsley.
I just have one item that I'd like to share. Many of you know that I presented to the school board the changing of the name Westmont Junior High, where I currently work, to the Keith A. Becker Junior High. Our former principal has been there was there for 23 years, passed away 5 years ago. And it's my understanding they're going to put it on the agenda for this Tuesday. So if anybody out there would like to come in support of that, and I guess if you're not in support of it, you should be there also to speak your mind. But we'd like to have people there so the school board has a good amount of people to, make a good judgment call on that. But as I said, a number of teachers would like to see a change, and he was an excellent principal, a community person here in Westmont, and I think it would be a good idea. So anybody out there would like to come Tuesday night to the school board meeting, I'd appreciate it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Scott.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Trustee Klebanow.
A couple of things. I believe we have a census meeting on the 22nd of this month at 7 p.m. here.
That's correct.
And so please, anybody interested in the census, please come, see if you can help or be part of the census or just learn more about it. And then I don't see anybody here from the chamber, so October 23rd through the 25th, downtown Westmont is having their Westmont Pumpkin Harvest Festival. And hopefully we're going to see everybody from the town here, and hopefully they have a good weather and a great time. I'm looking forward to a good time that time. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Fleming.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Trustee Seneca.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to thank the Chamber for a nice luncheon yesterday, and also thank you to Mayor Ron for giving the State of the Village address. It was extremely informative, and it's good to know that even during these horrible economic times, our village has taken some really solid and strong steps to kind of weather the storm. So we're headed on a very good and positive path, and thank you for making that very clear during the message yesterday. And then the other thing I had is last weekend, the Lions attempted to have their annual Candy Day, but of course got rained out. So I'm hoping that everyone will agree to allow them to do it again this weekend, weather permitting, and then we would vote for it on Monday. So unless there's any huge disagreement with that, I would hope that we could put that on for Monday. I think we need to encourage, and I've already talked to them about this, but I think when we approve things like this, we might want to encourage them to put a rain date in the event that this happens. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Could I ask what's the weather for this weekend?
I don't know.
It's clear up.
Supposed to clear up?
Is it? Okay. I was going to say, because I'd also be in favor then if it didn't work this weekend, just to say right now, then go to the next weekend.
Yes.
Is it both days this weekend?
Friday and Saturday.
I do want, in case some people realize, they were out because I did get my
Well, it might have
candy,
been
but not
Darien.
too many of them. Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure people don't get upset about that because they might have seen somebody out there that they didn't get out like they were hoping to, so.
Not at all. Thank you.
They were lucky they didn't get run over on the rainy pavement.
True.
I don't give when they're out in the car, so I just happened to catch him when he came up to his car.
Yeah, okay. Trustee Emery.
I just have a few things. First of all, I want to wish my husband a happy 15th anniversary. And last week was the Maze Lake Annual Bazaar. It was seemed to be a wonderful turnout. I hope they did well. It was a lot of fun, and they had a lot of good stuff. I think everybody should check out the Jesse White Secretary of State website. They now are up and running for the emergency contact information, that if somebody's in an accident and is non-responsive, the police can now pull their driver's license out of their wallet and plug in through the computer through the Secretary of State, and it will give them emergency contact information. So you can go on the Secretary of State website and plug in the information of who you would like them to call in the event you are incapacitated. So that's a good thing with technology that they've set that up. And then lastly, I'd like to request of our code enforcement people, we took a lot of pains with the multifamily licensing and to hold landlords to certain standards. And I think that if we can do things that help landlords, that's fair too. So to expect Eagle Creek to be renting out apartments and complying with our multifamily ordinance and renting out apartments across the street on Williams between 61st and 63rd, and to have their tenants look at those properties everywhere from the Thornton north to 61st, those warehouse properties and the old Schwendiner property and Westmont Interiors, it is appalling. It is a junkyard. It's an embarrassment to this town. And if people are going to start checking out the new Westmont yard that's going up across 63rd Street from there, it's an insult to all of us that they are maintaining their property in deplorable conditions. So I would like code enforcement to start riding herd on those people. It's not right that Eagle Creek is trying to lease out apartments that have to look at that junk. So we need to help out the landlords in this instance. That's all I have.
Thank you. Whole business, liquor license establishment, hours of operation. Board to consider changing the hours of operation for liquor licensed establishment. And this was brought up at the last meeting. I had talked with Tom Mulhern, my deputy liquor commissioner, and talked to him about the possibility of changing the hours of serving liquor from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. 7 days a week. And there was a lot of discussion from the board members on this item, but I didn't feel that we had come to any conclusion, nor did we have sufficient information to make a decision at that time. So I've asked that it be postponed to this meeting. With that being said, I would entertain any comments the board members may have, or comments that anyone in the audience might have regarding this item before us this evening. Comments from board members?
Well, I think, Mayor, you wisely last time tabled this issue to get input from anybody that chose to give us input, and boy, did we get it. Last time I was of the opinion that, or not of the opinion, but I threw it out there that if somebody else's who works night shift, somebody else's 5 o'clock happens to be at 6 in the morning, it's our perception. Well, it's more than perceptions, and I applaud the people who were willing to talk and were willing to let us know, and I had a few conversations one-on-one with some people. I think that to allow liquor to be sold in downtown Westmont starting at 6 in the morning has created a lot of problems. I think that the conduct of people to our business owners and our potential customers of those businesses, residents going to the train, some of them cut through the alley. I don't think it's appropriate anymore. We all talk about how we want to get businesses to downtown Westmont, and we want to promote business, and we want them to come in. And I think that serving alcohol at 6 o'clock in the morning is a disservice to all of the businesses that are working very hard, and all of the people in town that are working very hard to promote business in Westmont. I know there was discussion about changing the hours from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., and I respect that. I, however, think that one of the things that we may want to consider, whether now or later, is that we only sell packaged liquor to go, which doesn't mean you go in somewhere and buy a sixer and crack it open, wink, wink. Packaged liquor to go till 11 a.m. The people who want to imbibe can buy packaged liquor and take it home. The rest of downtown Westmont that wants to conduct business or be a customer doesn't have to be subjected to people who are inebriated at 8 o'clock in the morning and behaving inappropriately. That's what I think.
Other comments?
One of the things I've looked at was not just what the liquor stores, and stuff, but most stores don't open at 6 in the morning because there's a night shift. The night shift people do have to accommodate to normal hours, and they do. I think it was only the food stores, the grocery stores, a lot of them started staying open 24 hours, and I've heard many of the employees wonder why, because they don't get that many people, like after midnight in there. And I do know with the economy, I believe, you might want to check being liquor commissioner, but I do believe, I heard Jewel and Ogden is going to close. Now they're not going to be open 24 hours. They're going to close at a
Already
certain-
started.
Okay, now already
It's
started.
already both that and Clarendon Hills.
So, so I thought about that, and I started thinking, it's sad for the people who do work that hour, but they, for whatever reason, they had to, or they picked the time to work. We don't expect all the stores and all the businesses to accommodate in hours when they come home so they could shop. We have to go by regulations, and I don't see any reason. I mean, I would even be even after 9, but that's just because I don't visit those establishments. It's easy for me to say so, but I do believe in pushing back the time and pushing back possibly the time on a Sunday when you can actually go out. And people need to sit there, and if they're going to do something Sunday, they really should plan ahead and go out that Saturday night if they're going to go to, I think Trustee Forsley had indicated, like to a Bears game. If they have to leave before 12 and can't pick up their liquor, they better remember Saturday night to get it then. But that's what I would like to see, because I know Clarendon Hills does have it, I believe, at 12 on Sundays. Some of them don't sell liquor, and I think they stop selling it by 12 at night.
We've put over $1 million in the downtown area to upgrade it. This is the next step. And I'm sure the rest of the board wants to bury that whiskey bottle once and for all. So I would be inclined to go with what Trustee Emery says.
I would have to echo the same same comments. We have invested a lot of money in the downtown, and I understand that establishments have been here a long time. But in order to move forward, and I think what a lot of people are not realizing, and I granted comments that there's vacancies downtown, and why did we do the parking thing and that? I think we did this, well, I don't think, I know that we did this because as a board, we're not looking to next week, next month. We're looking years down the road and hoping that our ones that take our spots will pick up that and continue on. You have to start someplace. And unfortunately, there's little things that you do that are going to make people unhappy, but we're not going to make people happy all the time. And I would not have any problem at all moving the time back to 9 a.m. And as far as the packaged goods go, I think it would only be reasonable to keep it the same way, or if we decide in the future, change that also. And trust me, I'm not one, I mean, I enjoy going out and having a drink every once in a while. I'm not a teetotaler, so if anybody thinks that, I'm not also one that goes out and drinks all the time. But I think it's time that we start building a foundation and we start taking tough moves in order to build our downtown. And I think that's why also we are going to come up with a comprehensive plan. We're going to start working on that the first part of November, put that in place and start working it and going forward. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mayor, could I just make one quick comment? I know I wasn't here at the last meeting, and I apologize I wasn't able to make any comments at that meeting about this, but as you know, we've worked well over a year, almost 2 years now, pretty closely with the Downtown Westmont Business Alliance, and I think one of the common themes that I've heard is a common concern about improving the atmosphere downtown, signage, the overall aesthetics of the downtown. We've done a lot of things, as has been noted. I think this proposal actually, if you look at two of our neighboring communities that are comparable in size, this is kind of splitting the difference between the two in terms of when they started. So I don't think it's unreasonable at all, and I think it does go towards supporting, you know, some of the concerns that we've heard, and we've heard complaints about some things that have happened recently and in years past in the downtown that they relate to the hours that we allow the sale of liquor. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Anyone else?
I guess if we're going around the room, as an educator, we promote kids to make good choices. Drinking at 6 o'clock in the morning is not a good choice. So I would be for going to 9.
Okay.
It's interesting because of the emails I received, they were all in favor of moving to a 9 a.m. I didn't receive any emails otherwise, and I did have several people come up to me and talk about it and ask me what I thought. And I'm kind of inclined to agree, drinking at 6 o'clock in the morning, I don't know that that's the, I don't know that that's what we want to promote anywhere in Westmont, especially in the B1, which I think Trustee Scott just said, you know, we've put probably more than $1 million into the downtown. And, you know, if you need a drink at 6 o'clock in the morning, I think you can wait until 9, no problem. And if you can't, then you need to maybe get some help or go home or something. I don't know. It's a tough one because I recognize that there are people that get off work at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and want to go somewhere and have a drink, just as someone who might that gets off at 5 o'clock. But I don't know that I feel that that place should be Westmont. We've worked so hard to overcome Whiskey Hill, and we're not quite there yet, but, you know, I think it's a big step. It's a hard step, but I think it's a step that needs to be taken.
Tom, did you want to add anything?
Just some information since the last meeting. We checked with the packaged goods stores, mainly Jewel, Westbrook Market, and all these. Jewel will begin their liquor sales, as will Westbrook Market, at 7 o'clock in the morning. All these is not open until 9, so their liquor sales will not open until 9. An option to the board, if they wish to consider, would be to make package sales different. As I said last meeting, some ordinances or some other local communities have different times for different type licenses. So if you could wish, you could make your package sales at 7 or 8, and your other licenses different. There are 5 businesses in Westmont that have both packaged and consume on-site licenses. Those would be Walsh's, DJ's, the Uptown Potbelly, and I can't recall the 5th one, but there were 5. As far as the downtown or the other license opening times, the Uptown and the Potbelly are the 2 businesses that open at 6 a.m. in the morning. Walsh's opens at 11 and DJ's opens at 11. So as far as your times, those are the businesses that should be affecting by this change. One other thing, I had an opportunity to speak to a business owner yesterday on the issue. She saw the board meeting and trustees Forsley's comments about Sunday, changing time on Sundays.
Sure.
And her concern is that on Sundays, if we could maybe consider maybe 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock for a start time, because especially now in football season, you know, doing the sports on Sundays, lots start at noon. Their customers like to come in, be seated, get going, rather than opening at noon, and they're trying to get ready, get seated, and the game's already started. Especially in the football season, so she asked that we take that into consideration as well. That's all I have.
Okay. Seems like the majority of the board is interested in going from 6 to 9 o'clock. but there's discussion regarding the hours on Sunday and the sale of packaged liquors. Do we want to deal with both of those items at this time in addition to the hours, or do we want to consider those at a later time?
You can just, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have no problem with packaged goods beginning, you know, at 6 a.m. I mean, packaged goods. And, you know, Sunday, I'm fine with the 9 o'clock on Sunday as well.
I'd like to see, if we're going to have a 9 o'clock, I think no alcohol sales period till 9 a.m.
Okay.
I think it'd be a lot easier to regulate it and take care of it if it was blanket 9 a.m.
Okay. 9 a.m.
Yep.
Okay.
Package as well as over the counter.
That would make it a lot easier for the police to.
To enforce.
I could go for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could live with it.
Okay. Before we go on, do we have anyone in the public that would like to speak on this issue? Anyone in the audience? Yes.
Hi. Tim Giannakopoulos. I own Karma Salon, 15 North Cass. I believe business owners should be concerned and or responsible for what goes on in front of their business as well as behind their business. The safety and well-being of not only patrons and residents, but also employees and employers is of utmost importance for our community as well as any other community. Therefore, I believe the ordinance proposed is for the better and will create a more positive image for the town of Westmont. So I'm all for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Terry Osman. I own Travelers Cafe at 20 North Cass. My main concern is the condition of the patrons at the bars. I have witnessed a customer come out of a bar, hop on his bike, ride 10 feet, fall off his bike, and split his head open. Someone else stopped along with me, and we tried to help the guy. It took him a good 10 minutes to get back on his bike right away, and the only thing that motivated him to return to his bike was that we had told him we called the police. I've been a bartender at previous establishments earlier in my career, and I've had to take alcohol awareness classes, and so I know at what point someone should be cut off, and this man was way past that cutoff point. As far as my employees, one of my 17-year-old employees had left work at 8 o'clock at night and was headed to George's with her friends to get a burger. She went down the alley where there were 3 guys behind one of the bars smoking. One of the guys jumped in front of her and asked them what they were doing out past their bedtime. Then another one asked if they were legal age, and then the other one made a comment saying that if the door is shut, then it's legal. Several of my employees have been witnesses to someone very drunk urinating on the fence behind my cafe. They've urinated on my employees' cars. They block the alley when we're trying to leave or come in. So my main concern is just the patrons at these bars, how it looks to our communities, people coming in, either going to my establishment, John's or Tim's, you know, and they're not just people from Westmont, they're people from Hinsdale, Clarendon Hills, Burr Ridge, and this is what they're seeing when if there's not parking on the main street, they park around the corner. This is what they're seeing when they pull in and park. And, you know, I wouldn't want to, I'd keep driving around. I wouldn't want to park over there. So, you know, I don't know that even changing it to 9 a.m. is going to make that huge of a difference. I think it's a good start, but I think that, you know, like I said, maybe more needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
I have a question. Can we license bartenders and require that they be tested every year or, you know, hold a license to serve alcohol in Westmont as we do the establishment?
Never heard of that.
Can we hold them accountable?
I've never heard of that happening. I'm not sure whether that
Right
could
now,
be required.
the ordinances, do hold the bars.
Establishment.
The establishment accountable. As a home rule community, you can pass any ordinance not prohibited by the specific state statute or the Constitution, and if there's a rational basis and there's to the ordinance and a rational reason, arguably you can do that. I think it's very difficult to enforce. I think the police department will tell you that pinpointing someone who's been overserved, pinpointing that the majority of his drinks came from that bar and that they knowingly or negligently overserved him is very difficult to prove. I think licensing bartenders won't be that effective for the effort that's involved. However, all servers of alcohol at establishments do have to go through that alcohol awareness training, like was just mentioned.
But we only do that once, right?
For new employees who are serving.
And
yes.
then that's it.
Yeah. Not annual. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, any employee that is going to sell or serve alcohol in the village has to have completed either a class offered by the police department or a state-certified class, which is Bassett, Beverage Alcohol Sellers and Servers Training. And they had that certification. That certification does not expire, so once you attend one class, you're good as a alcohol server and can go from business to business. However, all the businesses are required, they should be keeping their proof that all their employees are certified or have had that training.
Do they check that when they go to the
No, that's something that
establishments?
I'd like to start enforcing as well, too, is checking and making sure all the employees and all the businesses
I know
are
we
doing that.
went through it to serve alcohol at the Taste, and we actually got a
Correct.
card. So they should have a card if they've been through the training,
Correct.
right?
If they're certified through the state we should have a record of it. They can do it online now. It's a 4-hour course that they can do online. State's offering discounts right now. It's $20 a person, normally $25 a person. Some businesses have, have voiced concern that, they had their employees go back and do it now, but that's a requirement. It's been a requirement for the village for the last 6 years that I know.
Thank you.
But it is something, as the attorney mentioned, that we could go back and require them to update it every two.
In addition to the enforcement checks, we could also add that to the, another check that we could do. So maybe on the off months when we're not doing the enforcement checks, we can do the checks for those as well.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm hearing is the board seems to be speaking in favor, of pretty much moving it back to 9 o'clock and also limiting the sale of packaged goods until 9 o'clock. And that would be seven days a week. Okay. Anyone else from the audience that would like to speak?
I just have a few comments. I'd like to thank everybody involved and taking concern with the image of Westmont in the downtown area specifically. I know my sister used to live above the restaurant, and one of the main reasons she moved was because she feared for safety. We actually got to the point where she took the panic button from the restaurant, one of the ones that I have that we keep on us, and she actually slept with the button because she constantly thought, that there was somebody watching her or something from, the rooftops next door. She once made the comment that she didn't need cable because she could just sit on the back patio and watch the Jerry Springer show. Sorry, I don't do this very well. So, the biggest concern to me was not quite a month ago, I had another local area chamber of about 17 people, and I'm not going to say which chamber it was in my restaurant having their annual meeting, and as they were leaving, they were kind of taking parting shots on Westmont, and it kind of hit home. Some of the things that were said were like, what was it? Do you have your flak jacket? We're in Westmont. Be careful not to trip on any cigarette butts or bums on the street. And, I kind of shrugged it off and was like, yeah, okay, good night, But it kind of hit home because that's where my business is. And I didn't really think about it much before that as being perceived, you know, people that come to town and then actually think like that. You know, they may have been a little snooty, who knows, but, you know, that's what it is. I don't want to see anybody lose any business in this town, but from 6 to 9 a.m., I don't see how we could actually sell that much alcohol between 6 and 9 a.m. You know, one thing, you know, the back alley in front of the buildings, I know a lot of this has been brought on by the state's decision to, with the smoking, you know, where are the smokers supposed to go? They were left to be out on the street. This is, you know, this is a problem. And it wasn't, I don't think it was well thought through as far as that goes, where the people are supposed to go. I don't smoke, but, you know, I see the problem. And maybe in addition to this, there might be other things like, you know, maybe there could be an outside smoking area. Maybe we take a parking spot away to where, you know, they can build a fenced-in area and they don't bother people. They're not hanging out in front of the businesses. I don't know, but there's got to be other solutions and whatnot. So I don't like to see anybody hurt, you know, as far as their business goes. So, but I think it is a step in the right direction because it's obviously noticed. You know, I mean, I've witnessed plenty of stuff, you know, drunken behavior and whatnot. I could probably tell you a lot of stories. But thank you, and thank everybody.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor and the Board of Trustees. My name is Justin Scheid, and I live at the 200 block of West Burlington Avenue. I've lived there for about the past 10 months. I'm here to express my support for rolling back the liquor license until 9 a.m. Downtown Westmont downtown is really the window to Westmont, and being a commuter, other commuters from other communities that are coming through Westmont on the train station are going to look out the windows and they're going to see the unsightly smokers and people that are frequenting the bars early in the mornings. I myself, on my way to work, I see them out there. I take issue with it. I don't think it's appropriate for people to be drinking at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't think it's appropriate for children on their way to school to see people out in front of these bars drinking and smoking at 6 o'clock in the morning. I have personally, while I'm taking my dogs out in the morning, witnessed intoxicated people stumbling down the alley behind my house. I've actually witnessed one person stumbling down the alley without his shoes on and without his shirt on, and this was about a month ago. So I'm fully in favor of rolling back the time to 9 o'clock in the morning. I also think that you need to consider the enforcement mechanisms if you were to allow packaged goods at 6 o'clock in the morning, particularly with respect to the two businesses that would then get a 6 a.m. packaged good license and a 9 a.m. liquor license. I think that would be very difficult to enforce. Having been in both of those bars, it would be very hard. I've also, in the short time I've lived in Westmont, had the occasion to find empty beer cans and such in my garbage on Monday evening when I come home from work and take my garbage cans in. So while I can't directly tie that to some of the downtown liquor establishments, I think there's some circumstantial evidence that there's an issue there. So I hope that you do, in fact, roll back the liquor license to 9 a.m., and I fully support it, as do many of my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any further comments from board members? Thank you.
Oh, you got
Anyone?
else?
Yes.
My name is Joe Legner. I live in Hinsdale. But I bring up a couple of points. 6 o'clock in the morning for these people that work at Pepperidge Farm, the hospitals, that's 5 o'clock your time to them. How many of you come home and go right to bed at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? People go to these places not to get drunk. They go there for camaraderie, talk out the things they've gone through the day, and it just relaxes you. Granted, you always got a bad seed, and no matter what you do. but it's not continuous. And it just seems like how many people from Hinsdale, Clarendon Hill are going to shop here at 6 o'clock in the morning? They don't come till 9 o'clock in the morning. And I really feel that it's sort of, what about the owners? They've had these places for years, and they're trying to take their livelihood, not maybe from them themselves, but the people that work for them. They lose the hours. And that's all I've got to say, being an outsider.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone? Okay. Thank you. This will be on our agenda for...
Positive spin for the loss of revenue. If the other thing goes through with the gambling, maybe that'll make up for the...
Thank you. New business, Napleton Porsche. Board to consider approving a request from Barry Turlip, Napleton Porsche representative, for permission to block off Wilmette Street at Rosewood Court and use the blocked portion of Wilmette Street as parking for their invitation-only customer appreciation party, Thursday, October 22nd.
Evening, Mayor. This is the same motion that has been put from the board twice before. This is a effort that we've come to with the community in trying to keep cars that are parking of attendees from Napleton Porsche from parking in the neighborhood, the residential neighborhood. They are parking legally, however, it has some concerns to neighbors, and we found this to be a very good stopgap or a very good solution to the problem. It has worked for us twice in the past. Napleton, as they find out of these events, they call and ask for permission. In this case, they postponed this event for a month so that we could get this in front of their board for their permission. At the last time this was discussed, Trustee Emery mentioned that maybe we could be doing something better than bringing these items to the board. At this time, I'd like to, in addition to asking the board for permission to block the street on this time, see if there's a way that we can give the chief of police permission to approve these road closures without having to come for the board approval. I will still let the board know that they're occurring in one. We still will notify the public. We'll still let the notice or the residents know. But rather than coming in front of the board each time, we're saying similar to how the board gave the clerk's permission for block parties, to see if we can do the same for this event. And this would be for this event only, not for any place else in the village. Any place else in the village, it would still come for the board's permission for the road closure.
I think that's a good idea.
Up to how many times a year? There probably should be some cap, so it's not happening
Correct. Porsche doesn't know. I mean, they have events. This one is, again, it's a customer appreciation night. Sometimes they have, there's a Porsche collectors organization that comes and has meetings. They didn't know. They've cut back because of the economy. The economy has severely, reduced their number of events. I know this is the third one coming up, so maybe 6. And again, without checking with management there, I can do that before Monday's meeting, but I agree a cap probably would be reasonable as well.
Tommy, have the residents been notified?
Yes, what we do is we get an electronic tree, like a phone tree, an electronic tree. We send the messages. Sergeant Dale has the emails on file, or we have 2 residents who have volunteered to receive this information, and then they forward it to all their neighborhood as well. And we feel it's worked in the past, that they notified, most of the residents watch these meetings, and so they learn of the meetings that way as well. And in the past, we've asked Napleton to actually go and put flyers inside mailboxes, not inside, but on mailboxes. But we found that the electronic notifications works best.
I think the police department's done a wonderful job of, in fact, gone over and above the beyond the call of duty to work with the residents. And I know that they're appreciative because I've talked to some of them over there, but I would say like once a quarter. I mean, I don't think they do it more than 4 times a year, do they? If that?
It varies. Again, here they don't know. Last year, I want to say it's 6 maybe last year. This year, Mr. Bonnerba, the manager of the Porsche, said that because of the economy, their events have been cut back and scaled back, so they are not having as many. They don't know about them until the last second. Like this Collectors Club's call and says, is the property available? Can we have our show there? This is a customer appreciation night. They pushed it back to accommodate us. The Napleton Porsches worked very, very well with the neighbors. They're trying to be a good neighbor, and we seem to be making inroads and progress. I guess maybe if we cap it at 6, and then if they need more than 6, then they come for the board for permission. But if you give me permission for 6 and any more than that, we would come to you. Maybe that'd be an option.
I mean, if it becomes an issue with the neighborhood, then I think it's something, you know, we have to revisit, but it seems to be.
Our first one, we had a little lack of communication, and some of the residents felt that we were doing this for the dealership, when in fact we're actually doing it for the residents. Because the cars are parking there, it just kind of helps. So we find now as it's going on more and more, it's a win-win for both. And as Trustee Seneca said, we're hearing from the residents that they appreciate this and it's working well.
And we did have a meeting where the residents came in, and we met at the police station and tried to work out everyone's concerns, and I think we did a pretty good job of doing that.
This would, as a result, we held our community meeting between management from the Porsche and
Right.
I think it was 3 neighbors, and this came out of that meeting, if maybe we could try this, and it seems to be successful. Porsche has been, again, a very good neighbor. They've been trying to do everything they can to accommodate, as in this case. They came to us at the very last second wanting to do this. I could not get this issue in front of the board, so they said, well, we'll put it off for a month until you can get it in front of the board so they can get permission.
You know, I think the only concern I might have with something like this is I don't want to see it become an issue of staff time. I mean, I think they need to self-monitor it, you know, I don't think we need to have officers out there directing traffic and parking cars, and, you know, if it becomes an issue of staff time, then,
The only thing we have is the street department will drop the barricades off. We also work with Elite Repeat to make sure that the street closure occurs after their business hours. As Elite Repeat has indicated, they do not want the street closed for their customers. Our officers will go out, on-duty officers will go out and put the barricades up, and then they take them down, so there's no overtime by the street department. We have the shift officer, if he is available, to be there at Traby and Wilmette to let the residents know and keep other visitors out, but the residents know they can go through and also prevent other visitors. Last time we had some coming through and park there. It's legal for them to do so. This is just more of a deterrent for them to go and park there on a regular basis. We try to, again, we only accommodate if the manpower is available or if the call officers are not on other calls.
Gotcha.
And usually Porsche hires an officer, off-duty officer, to be there at the events. So if a problem does arise, a resident does call or a problem arises, that officer will lead the event and go and handle the neighborhood problem as well.
Good.
I think the only thing I would ask is if there's a way that when these events come, that you could also give the heads up to the board so we're not blindsided. Should we start receiving emails saying there's been a problem? At least we know, you know, if we don't get anything, we know the event went well. If we start getting something, well.
If the board gives me permission to close the road, I will send you notification of my memo to Napleton Porsche and to the street department notifying that the roads be closed. I'll send that to the manager and the entire board so you're aware of it as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next item, 14 West Naperville. Board to consider the following: A, special use permit request to operate a garage in the B1 Limited Business District, and B, development permit request.
Good evening. My name is Asif Hamidi, and I'm doing a business in Westmont almost 10 years. I own this place, and I like to use this place as a garage. I have a potential tenant who want to do auto detailing, window tinting, and installation of automotive electronics. This place was used as a garage for years, and from last couple of years it's not used as a garage. And I'd like to village to give me permission to use as a garage.
Okay. Any comments? See, Fred Kimball just came in. I don't know if you want to add something to this at this time.
Your Honor, just that the building is really not suitable for anything other than a garage, but there are some limitations. Current codes will not allow a full-service car wash, a detailing mechanism, or a type of a service unless they have what's called a three-part pit, I guess, which is a very expensive thing to install. I think Asif was at about $28,000 to install that, and I don't think the petitioner is willing to invest that kind of money to allow them to do the car washings there. Now, they can detail the inside, you know, spray Windex on the windows and wipe down the dash and everything, but if they want to wash the outside of the car, they would have to take that to a car wash, then they could bring it back and dry it off in there and polish it or maybe wax it. But in order to do the wash and have the wash water fall off the car and onto the floor, you need that 3-part pit in order to be able to do that. So that, I think, John, would have to be one of the stipulations, that no on-site washing of cars other than, the detail type things, washing the glass with Windex and inside of the vehicle. And I think some of the electronic devices that the potential tenant for Asif has talked about is maybe installing navigational systems, stereo systems, that sort of thing.
Comments from board members?
What kind of lease is he looking at? How long?
Initially, we were doing like 2 years, and then they got an option to renew. All the business goes, everything goes so later on. So we'll decide,
The original idea for redoing the whole center has been shelved then?
Eventually, we wanted to remodel everything, and just make like a bigger gas station or, bigger retail place. But now, because of, the finances and everything, we can't do right away, so down the road, probably we will do like a bigger gas station, bigger food mart, so we can do more retails,
There will be no oil changes, brake jobs, or any kind of mechanical at all then?
No, not
Can't
right
do
now.
the oil changes unless you have the catch pit in
Right.
the basin.
I understand it, but I still want to ask the question.
Sure.
Yeah, I got the tenant here, if you want to ask a question, he can answer some question for you.
Is that right, what will happen? No oil changes, no brake jobs, no tune-ups? Okay. What about washing the car then?
You should be at
Could
the
you go to the
microphone.
podium if you're going to
Right,
talk, because
right.
the mic won't pick you up?
How would I clean the car?
What about washing the car?
I work close with Dale Cubis.
Okay.
So I'll be doing the washing the cars over there, then just drive it really across the street and working out from there.
Any other comments? Any other board members?
Just a comment, I don't know if you saw it in the Planning and Zoning Commission minutes, but they added as a separate motion recommending a sunset clause in this business. You can either tie it to this specific lessee, or you can put a specific time period on, something that's reasonable. A couple of years is probably not reasonable, given the investment, et cetera. 5 to 10 years, I think would be reasonable, or tie it to this particular business. And then reevaluate it. If this business left and a new business wanted to come in, you'd just consider it again. See if either circumstances have changed, see if there are problems with the use, et cetera.
That would be the recommendation of village staff. that
Well, he
it
said
be
he
tied
had-
to this particular operator.
Right, I was gonna say, didn't he say he had a 2-year lease? So just tie it to the lease?
Well, I feel more comfortable legally tying it to the particular business owner then.
Okay.
So, because he can extend his lease if business is good, and as long as business is good, he can stay for as long as he wants.
First year doing it, though. I was in Westmont for 5 years, moved
Right.
to Clairton Hills, now moving back to Westmont. So I've been doing this going on 10 years now.
So you don't want to unduly burden this owner, but it may not be appropriate for another owner, or you may want to reevaluate things if this owner is to leave after a certain time period. Alternatively, you can put a sunset clause on, but I would, like I said, say more like 10 years if you want to do it that way. And anything less than that may be, unless there are real special circumstances, may be viewed as unduly restrictive.
I like it having with the leasee. I think that just makes more sense. I like to have it, tied in with yourself. And if you extended it and the business is good, fine. You don't have to come back or anything.
And the lessee did testify at planning and zoning, as he just did now, that he has operated in Westmont previously, and
Yeah, it was
I think
5 years,
no
20
problems and
Chicago,
successful business.
and moved.
And you're working with Mr. Cubis? You're not going to be doing like body work where you're in competition with him? Okay.
Would there be an opportunity for you to sort of network with each other? I mean, might your businesses complement one another's?
We've already been working together for over 10 years.
Okay, good.
Okay, any other comments, board members? So the length of time will be, as you stated, tied into the ordinance where it will be dependent on the owner.
It depends on the lessee, correct?
The lessee.
Correct,
Okay.
lessee.
Okay. Anything further?
Nope.
Thank you. It'll be on our agenda for Monday. I have a request here from Trustee Seneca, an item she forgot.
Emery.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Emery, I'm sorry. I thought it was Seneca. John told me.
I forgot to mention earlier that Monday at 6 o'clock, prior to our meeting, we have our Public Safety Committee meeting here at Village Hall, and the fire department will be giving an H1N1 presentation and talk about the Consolidated County for Fire update. And the police department, we're going to go through we're going to review the youth programs and the school programs and the vehicle tow program. So, of course, all are invited, and especially anybody with concerns about H1N1. They're up to date on that.
Okay. Thank you. Next item, 6241 South Cass Speedway. Board to consider the following: zoning code variance request to increase the number of allowable signs from 1 to 6, and B, zoning code variance request to increase the maximum gross square footage of signage to approximately 165 square feet.
Hello.
Please.
My name is Sean Smith. I reside at 6001 Nimps Parkway, South Bend, Indiana, 46628. I'm here. This item was brought to the Village Planning and Zoning Commission on September the 9th and was approved unanimously. The request before you is to simply remove the, this is a legally grandfathered sign. And what we're trying to do is remove the existing manual changer for the pricing to replace it with the LED static pricer. So it's essentially, there's no increase in the existing condition. There's no modification in the existing condition. We're simply popping out that face, replacing with an LED static changer, so we can, instead of manually changing it, we can change it from the inside the business. And then there's no flashing, no scrolling. It's conducive. Throughout that corridor, there are some rotating signs, the McDonald's and then the car wash adjacent to us as well. This is a static message. It's basically just that. It'll show the price when it changes, and that's it.
Are the
So
LEDs red?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Red and green, actually.
Okay.
But does that conform to our sign ordinance? His request to replace the sign with an LED?
Yes, Your Honor, we do have a provision in the sign ordinance that does not allow flashing or stroboscopic effects. But I think the LED signs are fine as long as we don't have things that can act as diversions or distractions to drivers.
Okay.
And since I recently became a senior citizen, I'm very sensitive to those kinds of things.
And to reiterate that, this doesn't even, the mechanism we're putting in there doesn't allow that. It won't even allow for rotation. There's no way that it can be tripped up, so to speak, to allow for anything other than that static message.
Okay.
So what's the?
You know, we just, Your Honor, don't want people to think that there's an emergency vehicle someplace and, you know, hurriedly turn off the road and cause an accident or something like that. It can startle motorists, and for that reason, that's the reason for that provision in the code.
Fred, what's the variance request to increase the number of allowable signs from 1 to 6?
Okay, you want to speak to that?
Sure. What we have there it's a pre-existing condition, and the ordinance doesn't allow for that anymore. So what we do have, I'll show you real quick on the overhead. This will just show you.
Start the discussion.
This will show you what's existing there as the site plan. What we have here are 2 logo identification signs back in the back that say that's just the S. And I can flip through the presentation and show you that as well. And then here is B and D. Those logo boxes are approximately 7 square feet. And then the channel letters are identification signs of B and D, which say Speedway. And then F, we also have a logo box on the front canopy where you pull into get fuel. And then obviously A is our pylon sign, which we are here to talk about, to modify. But to bring that into conformity, here's the pages F, how they identify. This is what you'll see with the Speedway box, Speedway on the canopy, the Speedway logo box, and the Speedway on the canopy. We're not asking to increase any of these signs. We're not asking to touch these signs. We're not modifying these signs. That's not what the request before you is to do. We don't want to make any modifications to those. We're strictly looking at just the pylon, just the manual changer.
And the reason for this, trustee, is that when you have an existing legal non-conforming use according to the sign code, when you make any changes to a sign, you either have to bring it into full compliance or request a variance for the current condition to allow those changes to be made. And hence,
thus the request for the gross square footage too, right?
yes, ma'am.
16 square feet, I believe.
Yep.
Right.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here in the audience to comment on this request? Thank you. Next item, video gaming terminals. Board to discuss the issue of video gaming terminals in licensed liquor establishments as permitted by the Video Gaming Act.
Just by way of background, this was an item that was previously before the board. The board asked to hold it off for a cycle of meetings to allow us to do some polling of the community and try to get some feedback regarding how people felt about it. In your packet, there is information from the survey that we did, as well as some material that was previously distributed to the board regarding video poker revenue. I did pass out up-to-date set of charts regarding the survey that we have online. That was done as of about 12:30 this afternoon. The thing that strikes me looking at the survey is first of all, the response has not been overwhelming in terms of numbers. In addition to that, the position that people have taken is not really overwhelming in one direction or the other. If you take the slightly opposed and strongly opposed categories and add them together, it's a little over 50, about 51%. So it's not a real strong indication one way or the other. Wanted to point out that according to a Chicago Tribune article in their October 6th edition, there's been about 221 municipalities so far in the state that have opted out, including DuPage County in the unincorporated areas. In your packet, there were two sample ordinances that I wanted to call to your attention. One of them from the village of Buffalo Grove is actually kind of an interesting twist on the whole thing. As I understand it, it would be not a complete opt-out of the video gaming activity at this point, but merely stating that they reserve the right to issue their own rules up until the point in time that the state issues their rules. And at that point, they reserve the right to potentially opt out, at that later date. So that's kind of a different approach that some communities have taken other than just simply opting out. They've adopted ordinances similar to that, and I know the village attorney's had a chance to look at that ordinance, and he may want to comment on it as well. So that's kind of the information we have to date. I failed to mention that the chief of police provided you, as a handout tonight, an updated survey results on the liquor license establishments. We've had 15 out of 45 liquor licenses respond, and 8 of those responses said that they would seek video gaming licenses. And I don't know, Chief, if you have any other comments that you want to make about that survey. There were a number of other questions that he also asked.
The only update, I received one response after the due date. I said the due date is September 30th, I believe. So there's only 15 responses out of 45. I was hoping there would be more. They were mailed individually to each of the license holders. And you see the comments on there. It was pretty much, as Manager Searle mentioned, the public, the same with the business. It's 8 in favor of it, 7 against. So you're very close to 50-50 there, so one way or the other. Same comments that some would, would not want it all, some want it for the revenue and also assist with the village with its financial problems as well. So there's, again, no clear-cut consensus either way to go by the business people. If I get any more responses, I'll compile it and add it to the data and send you an updated list, but I only received one since the due date, and that's been 15 days.
Yeah, Trustee Seneca, you asked me before the meeting how many additional responses have we received as of this afternoon. We had 91 originally in the packet material, and now it's going up to 118 as of today at about noon.
Comments from board members before we open it up to anyone in the
Carl,
audience?
just explain the Buffalo Grove thing one more time.
Yeah, as I read it, they're basically saying that the state law is not a preemption of home rule power, and that the state commission, which was to be established to promulgate rules and regulations on these licensed establishments, hasn't done it yet and won't do it for another 12 to 18 months. And rather than saying we're not going to allow these gaming devices within Buffalo Grove, they are going to allow it, but they have to get specific approval from the village board, rather than just leave it up to the state to allow it. They also have the right to deny it. The part of the ordinance that troubled me is it says in the absence of a final rulemaking process, it's to allow the village to regulate any and all requests for the installation of video gaming terminals, as well as the right to prohibit. And I guess my thought is if you're going to regulate it, you have to establish your own rules. Otherwise, it can be a bit discretionary with no sound basis in law or fact. It could be rules made up on the fly. So if Buffalo Grove actually intends to promulgate their own rules, that's fine. If you were to consider adopting a similar ordinance or you wanted to review approval, likewise, I think you should have some established standards and rules governing their operation. At this point, we haven't even looked into that, and I think would require a bit of research to know what exactly to put in place and what to guard against.
Well, at the IML, I attended this particular session, and the way I understood it was at this point in time, you have a gaming commission in this state that covers everything, and right now they have 75 employees to take care of this. They haven't even started going through this at all. And the drift that I got from it also was that the state will completely oversee this. But as a village, you will have to regulate what their rules are. In other words, the way I understood it is you cannot set any other parameters other than possibly the fees on the terminals, but that's still up for question whether or not you can even do that. Revenue-wise, they were using numbers that I think were probably a little skewed, but the village's take, based on the amount of work involved, might be a total, depending on the number of machines you have, if you went to the maximum in our case, calculating out maybe $200,000 a year. But also, you have to make sure that any machines that they presently have will have to be gone because they'll no longer be in any place. I mean, just the initial part of it, our state legislator, again, our legislators have put us in a trick bag. Same thing that they did with the smoking ban. They're pitting village against village, and they just can't make up their minds. They thought this was a knee-jerk reaction on how they could get some more money out of the state. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to it, but I'm saying right now, there's really not a whole lot to go on with this. I mean, it's so new, and I mean, even the people that gave the presentation were going, we're not really sure how this is going to be handled. I mean, there's open-ended questions to this thing all over the board.
As I read the act, although it doesn't explicitly say one way or the other, if the village were to opt out at this time, nothing prevents the village from opting back in at a later date.
Right.
One of the concerns, if you don't take action, is that licensed establishment could enter into contracts to get these gaming machines put them up or anticipate putting them up, incur a financial obligation, and then be told at some later date, you can't have them, we opted out.
See, one of the things that, you're right, they put us in a trick bag, okay? And I agree with that. And we're in the economic state that we're in, and of course, finances, so getting $200,000 would be nice. We just get done talking about changing the liquor license from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock to upgrade the image, and then we bring in video games. I think we're contradicting ourselves if we're going to stand for one thing. I don't know how you can say, let's bring in the video games then. So I think that's kind of a tough situation now. In a year from now, if the economy, I'd hate to shortchange the residents of anything. If we needed money, is this a way to get it? Do you sell out to what we believe?
That may depend on what the other communities around us, because nobody
Exactly.
wants to be the first.
Well,
Exactly. So,
every time it comes up in front of the gaming board, and certainly last time it did, they table it. So everybody's in a state of limbo, and everybody's trying to get ready in all of this. It's certainly easier to institute something later than to say, boy, did we make a mistake, and now we got to try to take it away. If we do what a lot of other towns are doing, obviously, and as John explained, is say, guess what? Right now, we're not going to allow it. We're going to do an ordinance that it's prohibited, so our business owners know, don't waste your time, trying to jump the gun and get ready and have these things ready to pull the sheet off of them and, bells go off. And we can always say later, well, we've decided, let somebody else be a guinea pig and see how it is. Why do we have to, say, well, we don't want to give up, any money and all of that. We can institute it later. And let somebody, there's a lot of towns downstate, not far downstate, just, off of I-80 and stuff, that are going to allow it. And, let's take a look at how it goes for them, because despite the $200,000 or so income, we're looking at the amount of time that we're going to have enforcement and, put alcohol and gambling in the same place, and we all know what happens there, or can suspect it. So, if I had my druthers, I would certainly say, why don't we just take the idea out of people's minds as to what we're going to do, and then, we can always change it later if it's a success somewhere.
Well, the other thing that I neglected to say, that I meant to say, and the business owners need to understand this. You have to be a licensed liquor establishment to have it. But here's the other side of that. If you opt to go into this, you will have to then apply for a gaming license. So just because you have a standing liquor license does not mean that you can just put these machines in your establishment. The state is going to come to you and say, you have to have a gaming license as well as your liquor license. They haven't even decided how much they're going to charge for that yet. So, I mean, it's so open-ended right now, there's nothing really laid down. So that's the other thing that the businesses need to take into account. You're going to have to get a gaming license as well as holding a liquor license.
They're not going to be cheap.
John, I'm trying to recall. I thought there was something in the law that stated very specifically where these machines could be. It had to be in a bar. It couldn't be like in a restaurant. It had to be a certain size.
I know it has to be in an area that's not accessible to people under the age of 21. I'd have to look again to see what the other restrictions are as to location.
I'm thinking of, the only place I can think of that's really, really open would be the new Brickyard. The bar is like right there, in the dining areas right there. They're not really closed off. So I was wondering if it's really that restrictive of our 45 businesses that have liquor licenses, how many of them would even be able to have these machines?
Well, they may have to actually remove a table or two and have a cordoned off area, and they'd be set up against a back wall or something. They would have to figure that out, and we'd have to inspect it. It would be time and cost to the village, but the village could also,
charge for that.
So there is a solution to that problem.
Okay.
But you're right, the state act is not as clear as it should be. I think
Well, part of that's going to be the rulemaking that we're waiting on. I mean, it does talk about the location, it talks about the age restrictions. the number of machines. It says that it has to be in the view of at least one employee. But then it also says additional regulations. The Illinois Gaming Board may adopt rules that add additional restrictions or conditions, and that's what we're waiting to see what that may be.
So your enforcement may be even more than what you think it's going to be initially going into it. And the one comment I thought was kind of interesting was that the OTBs could not have these machines located within their establishments. That's one of the things that they did. But for instance, places like the Knights of Columbus, it's allowable. But they've already got a problem with the OTB situation because the Dick Weber bowling alleys are going to have OTBs in the bowling alleys, and yet you're allowed to have the video gaming machines in the bowling alleys. So they've already got a problem facing them right from the get-go. I found that one kind of humorous. So of course, what they're going to do is they're probably going to go back and find a way to change that. I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's just too many open ends to this thing that there's too many variables at this point to make a decision.
I have a feeling this date's going to change.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I harken back to the same thing that we had before. The whole thing with the smoking issue. I mean, here you got the state again putting the burden on the villages, pitting one town against another town as to whether or not you're going to pull the trigger on this thing or you're going to get left out in the cold. And the only ones that are going to make money really basically at the end of the day when you get done is the state. They're going to get the biggest chunk of this pie. But you're going to have to manage it and take care of it and monitor it and put your time and effort and your people into this to do this. So, I mean, I'm not sure that at this point, until it's more clarified and laid out, that I don't think that we can make a reasonable decision going at this point in time with this. But I would say that we should put something forth that the business owners understand. Don't go out right now and start contracting for these machines. Don't get all ready for it, and the minute that the state opens it up says, here we go. I mean, I would hate to see them go into that situation to that extent, but I fully believe before it's all said and done that the state's going to come back and say, you know what? It's legal, flat out. You got to deal with the state. Here it is. This is what it is. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how can you make a reasonable decision when you're given guidelines that are so vague and open, and there's no conclusions to a lot of them at this point in time? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. Which most anybody dealing with the state of Illinois at this point anyway understands that, okay? We all know that going forward, but it's standard operating procedure. You know, let's put the cart before the horse and let it fly.
If I could just run this to Trustee Seneca, yes, what type of businesses would have these? There's only 4 license types that can have this type of video gaming machine. The one would be a licensed retail establishment where alcoholic liquor is served for consumption on their premises, such as a bar or a restaurant. So a restaurant could do it, but as Attorney Zemanek said, they have to section it off. So you'd have to have it in an area where somebody over 21 can only go and not someone under 21. The other one would be a fraternal establishment or a veterans. I think fraternal would be something along the Knights of Columbus, or a truck stop. So we feel in Westmont the only 2 would be the restaurants, bars, or the fraternal orders.
How do they define truck stop?
Truck stop is a facility with at least 3 acres with a convenience store and a separate diesel island for fueling, parking, and commercial motor vehicles. So I think would be okay.
Lead law.
That's buses, not. Just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here in the audience to speak on this item? Further comments from board members? Advice from our attorney as to where we go next.
Well, you have to decide whether you'd like this to appear on the agenda for Monday night with a vote. The majority of the comments, if not unanimous, was, it sounded like to vote to opt out, at least at this time, and see what happens. And you can even put a statement to that effect in the ordinance that you'd like to opt out at this time until the rule-making authority acts and promulgates the rules, and you can leave the door open to reconsider.
Yeah, I don't see how we can say yes without even knowing what the rules and restrictions around it'll be. I mean,
We're
that's
trying to-
like,
Or no.
pass a sanity check.
You don't even know what the fees are in anything. I mean, and the business owners, and I'm not sitting here saying that we won't do it, but with the information we have right now, we can't make a reasonable decision going forward on this. I mean, they don't even have, like I said, they don't even have what the license is going to cost you to have this at this point in time. They don't really have basis of how much each machine. I mean, it's just.
But I think we should at least discourage our businesses
Right.
from thinking that they should, amp up.
Go out and enter into
There's
contracts.
plenty of time to do that later. I mean,
Well, let's look at how many people responded in the businesses too. It's pretty pitiful. When you got 15, 1/3 of the businesses who
believe-
responded, and 100 and some residents out of 26,000.
That amazed me. I thought we would get,
I know.
You can't make
far
a
more
decision on either way without, you could come up with 52% that want it.
Well, I mean, the thing, and you got plenty of
Or don't.
time. You got plenty of time for more comments to come in on this. I mean, it's not something that's gonna be done next week, that's for sure.
But I think it's only fair for the businesses to know at this point, because they are getting emails and faxes trying to sell them these machines and get them on order. And I'd hate for them to get in a catch situation there, so,
I got messages from us too about responding, and they didn't do that.
well, yeah, but we're not the salesmen trying to get after them, and these people will be salesmen trying to get them to sign up, so.
I would opt to what you're saying. I mean, I think the attorney brings up a point, the way we ought to handle this at this point.
just wait,
I really do.
just wait. Say no.
Okay, unless there are any other further questions, attorney will put this in the proper legal language for us to consider on Monday. Anything further?
Just that I'll email a copy of the ordinance to everyone, so you have it prior to the meeting. Thank you.
I mean, and we could very well, I mean, it could change.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're kind of, I mean, we're saying no now, but I think what we're really doing is putting it on hold until we have more information.
Until we find out how greedy the state wants to be.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Next item, declaration of village property as surplus. Board to consider declare 1997 Ford Crown Victoria as surplus village property. This item was placed on auction either through eBay or another auction service as authorized by the village manager to be sold to the highest bidder, or otherwise disposed of as authorized by the village manager. Questions? Next item, utility billing and mailing service. Board to consider a 3-year agreement with InfoSend Incorporated for utility bill printing and mailing services.
Hello. Before you this evening is a service agreement with InfoSend Incorporated. They are originally out of California, but have a location here in Downers Grove. It's been open for about a year, and the Clerk's Department and Finance Department have been working jointly for several months to evaluate some companies that provide utility billing and mailing services. We have not been completely satisfied with our current vendor, and it is to the point where we feel that now is the time to make a move. There's been some delays with billing and some other issues, so we feel it's critical that we contract with another vendor. Fortunately, we had started this process before we ran into some recent troubles. So after doing some research and comparing prices and meeting with companies, looking at their products, talking to some of the other Illinois municipalities that the vendors work with, both the finance department, the IT division, and the clerk's office, feel confident that InfoSend Incorporated is a company that not only provides a high quality of service, they have expertise in utility billing in Illinois. They have a location that's close. They do in-house printing of the stock, which is a service that we do not have right now with our current vendor. We have to have the stock printed by one vendor, and then we have to keep a stock of that and provide it to the person who does the mailing and the invoices. We feel confident that, in conjunction with the fact that the price for InfoSend is actually less than we are currently paying per bill, that it's a good deal. So we feel confident in the company, and their customer service has been outstanding up to this point.
Less is good.
Yeah.
Questions?
Do surrounding communities use them?
Downers Grove does, Orland Park does, and there's about 13 or 14 other Illinois municipalities that do. As I said, they've only been in Illinois. This is going to be their Midwest, their regional distribution center and production center. They've been out of California, and they've been getting more customers to the east, and it's, for them, more cost effective to have a centrally located distribution and production center. So they picked this as their east and Midwestern distribution. So they're just getting more into this area, but there are about 14 that they currently have.
And we've checked with like Downers or some of those, and they're all happy with the service?
Yes, very much so, yeah. They were also present at the Illinois Government Finance Officers Association conference in Springfield earlier in September, and I spoke to some of their other clients there as well.
Good.
So,
thank you for doing that.
Do we have any contract with the other company, or is it time to get out?
It's a good time to get out. We do not have any long-term binding agreement with the current vendor at this point in time.
Further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next item, substitute school crossing guards. Board to consider approving the lifting of the hiring freeze on a temporary basis for the sole purpose of hiring 2 substitute school crossing guards, with the hiring freeze otherwise remaining in full force and effect.
Reason this is we currently have a full complement of crossing guards. We have 1 substitute. However, in the past, we have experienced, especially in the winter times, when crossing guards will call in sick. Sometimes we've had 2 that I know of, possibly 3 crossing guards calling sick. So we just wanted to be able to have a ample supply of substitute crossing guards that can just fill in when needed. There's been times where we call a crossing guard to come and fill in for somebody who's calling sick. They can't make it. These additional 2 we feel will just give us adequate staffing. Again, there's no extra cost to this. They will only work when a crossing guard calls in sick. They are part-time employees. There's no benefits involved.
Question? Hearing no questions. Thank you again, Tom. Next item, Fire Department drug testing policy. Board to consider an ordinance approving the Westmont Fire Department drug testing policy.
This is a policy that our Human Resource Administrator has been working on the last few weeks with the Fire Department to develop a random drug testing policy similar to what we've already had in place for a number of years with our CDL license holders and the Public Works Department. It's taken some time to try to work through and get some samples from some other area departments that are already doing this sort of thing. So we're asking the board to adopt this via ordinance so that we could begin training and begin the policy.
Okay. Questions? No questions. Thank you, Ron. Police Fire Emergency Communications Consolidation Plan. Board to review plans for consolidating the Police Fire Emergency Communications Center with the Village of Oak Brook at the Westmont Police Fire Facility.
Thank you, Mayor. Within the last year, the Village Board gave the Police Department and Fire Department's direction due to budget constraints to begin exploring options on consolidating our dispatch center. Most communities in our area are experiencing the same budget constraints we are, and the constraints are unlike anything we've ever experienced before. At that time, when we began looking at this option, we identified 3 options that were open to us. One, we could remain status quo with no consolidation and just remain as we're doing now. However, due to our budget constraints, this is not a real viable option for us. Our second option was to consolidate with one or more local communities, either here in Westmont or at their facility, consolidate our dispatch centers, consolidate our resources and employees, and see if we can end up with a financial savings. The third would be to migrate to a private consolidated dispatch service. The main one in DuPage County is a service called DuCom, and they're located in West Chicago. We approached the villages of Oak Brook and Hinsdale to see if they were interested in exploring the idea of consolidating their dispatch centers here with us or at their centers, and they were. We chose Oak Brook and Hinsdale because we currently share common police and fire frequencies with repeater systems on both police and fire radio frequencies with these towns. We have been on the same police frequency, the three towns, for over 31 years. Our fire department participates on a daily basis with mutual response plans to Oak Brook, so they're familiar with the operations of the Oak Brook Fire Department, and the Oak Brook Fire Department is familiar with the operations of the Westmont Fire Department. We obtained a cost analysis from DuCom for their services, and we learned that if multiple agencies joined their center at the same time rather than separately, there would be an additional cost savings to each community. We also researched the pricing option of a combined dispatch center here at the Westmont Police Fire Facility. We chose our facility to combine the dispatch centers because we are best equipped to handle that operations center. We have 4 separate consoles. We could operate, if we chose, 4 separate dispatchers at a time, and we feel that that would be adequate for the operations that we're proposing. Over the months, we explored other consolidated dispatch options, including consolidating with other communities. During our discussions, it was decided that Oak Brook and Westmont would consolidate here at our facility. We'd be the only 2 towns that would consolidate together. Staff of the Oak Brook Fire and Police Departments, along with our Fire and Police Department staffs, have been working closely to continue exploring the option of consolidating our dispatch operations center here in Westmont. We have formed an excellent working relationship between the 2 senior staffs of both agencies. We realize that our partnership will extend beyond our efforts to consolidate here in Westmont. By that I mean, because of the pricing at DuCom, being that we will realize additional financial savings if we go someplace together rather than separately. We realize that, so whichever one town does, we're kind of at the mercy of the others. So if Westmont decides to go to DuCom, Oak Brook would be the same, and vice versa, because of that additional cost savings. We feel that the services each community and that their employees will receive from a local dispatch versus a consolidated dispatch center is preferred. Our dispatchers will know our communities, our residents, our businesses, and employees. They will know locations, previous call histories, and other valuable information that may not be available should we go to a larger consolidated dispatch center. We believe the services offered by our citizens will be more personable and knowledgeable than if we went to a larger dispatch center. By consolidating here, we'll be able to provide a limited dedicated fire dispatch, which DuCom will not be able to offer for us. By consolidating here, both communities will reduce their operating costs while still providing the same level of services that each community currently receives. We will retain our current employees and seek to hire as many Oak Brook telecommunicators as possible. So if this combined dispatch becomes a reality, our dispatchers would retain their employment, and then we would also take the employees from Oak Brook, as many as we had openings for, and they would become Village of Westmont employees. Later on after this presentation, if any board has any members, I have Deputy Chief King here can address any of the operations questions you may have, and Spencer Parker from the Finance Department is here to address any financial questions that you may have. It's the recommendation of both the Oak Brook, of all our staffs, Oak Brook Police and Fire and Westmont Police and Fire, that we consolidate with the Village of Oak Brook here in Westmont. We are seeking the board's permission or guidance as to which way we should continue. Do we continue with our discussions with the Village of Oak Brook and consolidating here, or should we stop those efforts and begin directing our efforts towards consolidating at DuCom or other consolidation options open to us? We have met with the Oak Brook Village Manager. We've met with 3 other trustees on this issue. They have toured our facility, and we explained to them how our proposed operation would be. On October 27th, the Oak Brook staff will be seeking the same direction and guidance from the Oak Brook Village Board as to whether they should continue talks to consolidate here in Westmont, or do we begin to move towards DuCom instead. If both boards agree and give us the direction to continue working together on consolidating here in Westmont, staff will begin on working on a intergovernmental agreement between both villages, ensure all financial, equipment, and personnel issues are correct before we sign that agreement. We will begin negotiations with the Fraternal Order of Police Telecommunicators Labor Council to address several labor issues involving the consolidation process and hiring of OPRC employees by the Village of Westmont. We also realize that we must continue to evaluate our options if we consolidate here. By that I mean there's a strong possibility of a combined communications center being operated or being proposed by the Woodridge Police Department called the DuPage South Dispatch Center. This center is scheduled to be in operation sometime within the next 2 years. Staff will continue to evaluate that center and determine if we should continue our center here, even if we combine with OPRC, or if we should migrate to that center in the future. If we should decide to migrate or move to the DUCOM Dispatch Center, when our citizens dial 911, an officer, an ambulance, or a fire truck will arrive at their home or business. Our citizens will continue to receive emergency services. We believe that our consolidated operations here in Westmont is the best of the two options available to us and will provide an outstanding level of service to our residents, officers, businesses, firefighters for both the villages of Oak and the Village of Westmont. Staff's recommendation to continue discussions with Oak and create a consolidated dispatch center here in Westmont. We would like the board's direction on which way to proceed, and we will keep the board updated on the decision of the Oak Brook Village Board as well. Any questions?
Questions?
No questions, but just for the benefit of the people at home, what date was it, Tom, we had our special Public Safety Committee meeting?
It was last Wednesday.
Okay. Last Wednesday, we had our, it was open to the public, there were people there, and actually all of the board was there in attendance. It was a 3-hour meeting, and they had trustees from Oak Brook and the Oak Brook Village Manager, Police Chief, and Tom and Spencer really, and other people from the police department really tore this thing down and put on a good presentation. So I don't want the people listening at home to think that we're not paying attention to it. We really tore it apart and asked a lot of questions and all of that. And as chair of the Public Safety Committee, my recommendation is that we give direction to the police department and the fire department to continue the Emergency Communications Center with the Village of Oak Brook to take place and to be their command center and all the dispatching to go from Westmont, and not to take further action as far as joining DUCOM, which is the DuPage Communications Center.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Definitely.
Agreed.
I just want to add on to Trustee Emery's that these are just working on the plans right now. You have a lot of hurdles to cross. So, you know, I don't want the residents to think that it's also a done deal. We've got to work these, you know, little hurdles out and make sure it works. And we're all positive, and we want to proceed positive that it is going to work out. We're looking forward to, at least I am, and I think the rest of the board is looking forward to joining Oak Brook on it, and I hope they're looking forward to having us with them.
They are as well. Our target date or our goal date would be May 1st, fiscal years for us, and I believe maybe OPRIC's as well. We again have a lot of hurdles, as Trustee Klebanow mentioned, to go over, and that is going to be the OPRIC board's agreement as well. If OPRIC board decides that no, they wish to go to DUCOM or another option, well then, you know, our hands are tied and we will have to look at our options again as well. We know that consolidation is something that will happen. How soon it will happen, we don't know. We have to get, as you mentioned, we have to meet with the union. We have to get this intergovernmental agreement done between the two villages. We feel confident that it will have a positive outcome. I guess our main thing is that our residents will not notice any difference. It actually may be improved. And we feel that it will bring an improvement to the Village of Oak Brook as well. Nothing against our dispatchers. They have a great team over there, and we're looking forward to gaining their knowledge and their expertise here. And we're looking forward to our dispatchers giving their knowledge and expertise. We feel that this is a win-win situation for both villages. It won't happen overnight. Once we get the direction that this is really happening, we're going to begin cross-training between both agencies so our dispatchers can learn Oak Brook and Oak Brook dispatchers can learn Westmont.
And Tom, as you had pointed out last Wednesday, you did a beautiful presentation to explain and to allow the board to take into account as to what's best for the residents of Westmont, which is to continue to get the personal service of dispatchers who know the town, know the streets, and know the police and fire, even can recognize individual voices, which really aids in the whole dispatch process for the residents.
It's very important. I mean, you as Trustee Emery said, we're going to have that personal touch. Our dispatchers now, and OPRC dispatchers know the voice. They recognize the voice. I can tell you that's an OPRC officer, that's a Hinsdale officer, that's a Westmont officer. I can tell you the officer's name in Westmont. I know some of them in OPRC. I can say, oh, that's Sergeant Nugent. I know her. I know her voice. Our dispatchers are going to be able to tell not only that, but when the officer, something's not right, something's out of the ordinary. The fire department can, Chief Trout, if he wants to speak about on the fire department's end of this, but they know they know the running orders. The running orders are different, so they're going to know that. We just feel for our employees, it's going to be a better service, which will result in a better service for our residents and our business owners. Nothing against any other consolidated dispatch, but as you get bigger, you lose that personal touch. We feel that being small, we will be able to retain that.
And just so the people at home know, you're talking about knowing and working now with Hinsdale, but this joint communications would only be Westmont and Oak Brook.
Hinsdale has opted out. Hinsdale had financial and operational issues, and so they have opted out. We contacted other agencies. However, it just seems to be Oak Brook and us. We're the only two that continue to talks and feel that we want to continue. However, we'll have to wait to see what happens October 27th. I do believe, though, the village manager from Oak Brook is interested to see what our board's direction is going to be, so they can take that to their board in their presentation as well.
So what you're saying is we're going to get better service at a lesser cost to the village. Is that correct?
You're going to get the same great service that you're currently experiencing now at a lesser cost. Yes, sir.
Same thing, different words.
Just yes.
This is looking back on this situation historically. Is all the villages around the area, they've always had their own little fiefdoms, our fire departments, our police departments, but now, because of the state of the economy, we've been put in a situation where we're all looking for ways to cut our costs, and it's something that probably should have taken place a long time ago, but because of the finances, it wasn't really necessary, and the villages did not have to do this, and they all maintain their separate systems. But even in fire and police, they've always done an awful lot of sharing of services with other villages. And in particular, Oak Brook, both fire and police have had a very strong working relationship with them for a long period of time. It's not something that's just newly being looked at, that you have worked together with them perhaps more than some of the other, more closely than the other villages around the area. So it's more of a natural for us to combine with them to provide a more effective, efficient service.
Again, for 30 years, we've been on the same radio frequencies. We had at one point, Randy, if you can correct me, I think at one point we had 8 to 9 police departments on the same radio frequency, and now we're down to just the 3. We work very, very well. We'll still stay on the same radio band as Hinsdale. Mayor, you mentioned 2 other communities. Again, in years past, everyone had their own communication center because that's the way to go. I can know that personally Rolling Meadows and Roselle, they've had gone because of financial constraints. They're going to, Roselle has gone to DUCOM. Rolling Meadows has gone to Northwest Central Dispatch. Towns where before they would not look at consolidated dispatch are now looking at it. It's a way to realize a cost savings, and we just feel that this is a win-win for both of us. Okay. We sat in meetings with the Oak Brook Fire and Police Departments together. Our common goal is to make this work. I'm very proud of the excellent working relationship we have between both agencies.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment that another influence in all of this is the Emergency Telephone Systems Board at the county level that runs our 911 system. They are strongly promoting consolidation for the same reasons that the individual municipalities are looking at it to save money. They've talked about hiring a consultant and going to that extent to try to continue this trend of trying to consolidate these centers. They pay for the equipment in those centers, they own the equipment, and they're looking obviously to reduce their costs. So it was something that even beyond our own intentions, it's being driven countywide, and it's going to continue for probably several years. I just want to thank the two chiefs and the collective deputy chiefs and the finance department. The Trustee Emery commented on the fact that, you know, there's been a lot of work, that even though we may not go into all the details tonight, those three departments have put a lot of hours into researching this and looking at the different options and having a lot of meetings with our neighboring communities. And this has not been a light decision by any stretch of the imagination. And we're certainly not done at this point. But there's been a lot of work that's gone into this, and I just want to say thank you to those departments.
Thank you. Anything else?
Just a question for the agenda on Monday. Would you like a motion authorizing the police and fire departments to continue negotiations? So there's an affirmative statement out there to Oak Brook?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Finance ordinance number 12.
Waive the reading.
Request to waive the reading. Purchase orders. Questions on purchase orders?
Yes, I would again like to separate the vehicles.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I do appreciate the information I received on the vehicles, the three that are going to be replaced with the new vehicles. However, I'm still a little stunned at the mileage on it. I still think we could have held off a while, but that's just my opinion, so we'll leave it up to the board. Thank you.
Anything else? Unless there's anything else at this time, I would accept the motion and go into executive session.
Real quick, I think we forgot one thing when we were talking about the time on the liquor establishments. When do we want this to go into effect?
Mañana.
I mean, we have,
That's tomorrow.
What do you?
we have to have a date.
If I
Please.
could, there was one question I was going to bring up to the village attorney. With the licenses, they expire December 31st of
Yeah, I was
every
gonna say
year.
January 1.
Since they have paid their fees for the hours, I don't know if that's any consideration that way. Do you hold off until January 1st? And then we amend the license that way?
Sure. Merry
That's it?
Christmas.
I think that's okay.
That's all right.
That makes sense.
Very good.
Anything else?
Thank you for bringing that up.
We have a motion and a second on the
So moved.
executive session.
Second.
Lost the roll call sheet.
That's all right. We'll give you time to find it.
Oh,
Jenny never lost a roll.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
Trustee Forsley?
Yes.
Trustee Clevenow?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes?
And Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Very good.
Look around.
Great memory. Thank you. We are adjourned to executive session.